We're going to go ahead and begin. I'll introduce myself. Some of you may or may not know me. I'm the founder of Career Mingle. And thank you for joining us the last day of our event. I wanted to introduce Bandana Katoch. She is part of the America SBDC. For those who do not know what the SBDC is, it's the Small Business Development, is it corporation or center? Center, the Small Business Development Center. And this is an organization that's throughout the United States in different locations. They have partnerships with different municipalities, also different colleges, and their whole goal is to help regions with entrepreneurs that are looking to build their business and to bring commerce to different regions. I know Bandana can talk more about that. And Bandana, I'll leave it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Pleasure. And thank you for having me here. I'm really excited for this opportunity, so I appreciate that. And with that, greetings to everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and if some of you are joining from East Coast, early evening to you. Pleasure being here. Let me start a little bit by talking about SBDC. Elizabeth gave a very good introduction. Small Business Development Centers are all around the country. They are pretty much in every county of the state, if not other states, if not other, each and every few counties, every few 50 miles, there is an SBDC. If you're not familiar with a similar SBDC center in your own community, I would strongly urge you to actually get familiar with them. This is a free resource. You don't pay for any of the services you actually take from SBDC. We have a host of advisors who work in different areas, different sectors. Most of us come with minimum 15 to 20 years of experience in the business industry and can really be a free resource as well as a sounding board for many of you out there as you are, looking ahead towards your aspirational entrepreneurial goals as well as even in your career. So I hope our paths will cross sometime. And with that, I'll give you a little bit about my So let me first introduce the topic and also introduce myself. The topic for today is how to pitch to an investor. So I hope you are joining here to listen to this topic. I'm Bandana Katoch. I started my career as a cancer researcher. I did cancer research for about 10 years before I shifted my gears and went to business world to help with the technology transfer and commercialization. I worked in university settings for about 15 years. Also had my JD specialization in intellectual property. And I now work completely with hundreds of science-based technologies from all over the country, as well as in some international programs supporting entrepreneurial in US, entrepreneurial ecosystems in US and also abroad. This is my email address if you ever want to reach out or want to have further clarification about what we talk today. Happy to share more insights on those topics. Also, I feel fairly comfortable to address any questions you might have. So you can actually add the questions in the chat. I'll try my best to stop in the middle somewhere during the talk to take up questions. But if there is a burning question and you really would like to get it addressed right away, send it on the chat, and I'll try to monitor that as I go through and make sure that I address those questions as I'm going ahead. So you don't hesitate to stop me in the middle if there's something I can clarify. So with that, I'll initiate the topic. There were some few areas I wanted to bring together in the talk today. Of course, each of these areas are in itself big subtopics. So you might feel during the conversation that there is a little bit more which can be added, but I tried to distill the information and bring it to you as a nugget of like basics for this particular topic. So first, this is a very common topic if you're looking into an entrepreneurs to kind of really understand how to pitch to an investor. And most of the entrepreneurs look into it as about their technology or about their product or solution they're trying to develop. Having worked with investors from around the world now for about 15 years, it has given me some unique insights into what investors are thinking. So I've tried to bring in some elements to help you understand the mind of investors as well. So just I wanted to understand my audience and was trying to see if how many of you have already gone through first round of investment. If you could answer that question on the chat, that would be very helpful for me so that I'll understand and kind of address the conversations today accordingly. So how many of you have already gone through first round of investment? Yes or no? Okay, fantastic. I see few no's. I've not seen a yes yet. So I'm assuming most of you have not gone through first round of investment. Are you currently working on preparing your pitch deck? If you could answer yes or no, that would be super helpful. I don't see a response, so I am assuming some of you are here for, okay, I see some no's, okay, good. So this might be an advanced search in that sense to kind of understand yes and no and thought of hiring a professional. Fantastic, thank you for answering those questions, really appreciate that. I would say, hiring a professional is definitely an option, right? But this is your business, and so you live and breathe this business. So I still believe that pitch deck is just a formalization of your vision. If this is your business, no other professional can present it better than you. It's a different thing in terms of slides can be improved by somebody, but I would really say if you are the one presenting, you want to make sure every content which is on the slide is yours. So that way you understand exactly and you can live and express that to the investors. And if any one of you who's been thinking or have done, tried to work on pitch deck in your past, what was the biggest hurdle you faced when you were working on the pitch deck? So if any one of you have answer on that, that would be helpful. And if no, then I'll continue with this is usually having these polls are much easier in in-person settings because you can easily ask people to raise their hands. Little difficult. Okay. So content was the major thing you were looking into as a biggest hurdle. Thank you. And I really do think that the slides to come after this would really help you address that hurdle. So thank you again for joining me in the polls and giving me a little bit of more context of who you are, what you are looking at, and what is the objective you are here today to know more. So first of all, what do investors want? Thank you. So I'll remember that. And as I continue to go over the slides, I'll make sure to address some of the questions related to how to demographics and visualize the data you have. So first of all, this is like the essence of anything, not just for presenting to investors, it is also presenting to any audience. You always want to know, investors tend to invest in what they know. So you want to get familiarized with your audience to begin with. And sometimes, like in this case, I didn't know how, from where you all are joining. So for me, it was very important, and polls, which I just did in my previous slide, gave me an understanding of my audience. So you will see how I'll navigate through some of the slides to make sure that I address for all of you the questions or the responses you had throughout the presentation. In case of investors, you might not have an opportunity to do the polls. So I would highly recommend that when you go to present in front of investors, you want to do a thorough research on who they are, who have been their portfolio companies, how much did they invest, what did they invest, what are the backgrounds of the investors in a firm. Really knowing your investors will help you direct your content in the pitch deck much more accurately and appropriately. They always try to invest what they know, so that's why you want to make sure that you have a good strategic fit between the company, the technology, and the pitch you're making. If you think you're making too much of a stretch in creating that fit, maybe they are not the right investors for you. And I think that's where the research, doing the research on your investors will tremendously help you. They don't have, because most often investors try to invest in their comfort areas. They usually don't have time or inclination to learn new industry. So finding that strategic fit is extremely important. Investors are not really interested in how your products work. So I have seen, having worked with science-based companies my entire life, I have seen a lot of researchers, a lot of scientists or technologists focus a lot on the technology part. From an investor standpoint, they're not really looking for if your basic technology is viable, it's feasible, they're good with it. What they really want to know is your knowledge about the marketplace, your understanding of how your product and services will serve the marketplace. What problems do your products and services solve? And why will people part with their hard-earned money to buy your solution? This is your customer. What is the unique attribute about your product or services which will make a consumer make a choice for your product? Investors, and this is something, once they know your knowledge, your understanding, if you'll notice, they're really investing in you then. They understand, of course, the technology part of it to some extent, but investors more than ever want to invest in people. They want to invest in you. And that is something you want to make. And I'm not saying that when you go for an investor meeting, you want to show the best side of yourself. What I'm saying is you want to show them who you are. And so that right from the beginning, they understand. And when they see a strategic fit between a person and a viable technology, they are keen on investing. This is one mistake I want to, and throughout the conversation, you'll hear me say this few times. One thing which puts off most of the investors I've seen is when anybody tells them that there is no competition. There's never a product which has no competition. And I'll tell you why. Because, for example, you create a Lime scooter. Okay, and you say there are so many people who are not able to walk. This gives them, potential to reach their destination. It allows to remove the traffic gridlock, and you can move from one end to another in pretty congested areas pretty quickly. And you say, we are the first one. Nobody else have done these scooters, so we have no competition. What I would urge you to think about is you do. Every person walking on the street is a competition. Every person taking a car is a competition. So your problem which you're trying to solve is going from destination A to destination B. You might not have direct competition in terms of the scooters, but you might have indirect competitions in terms of other products who are trying to solve this problem. So when you say, and I will address one of the questions here in 1 minute. So I would say to really look into, to really understand, it goes back to this: what problem are you trying to solve? And why should a person give their money to access your product? And from the financial standpoint, I've seen so many times people will have so complicated financial projections. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Before I move on to the next slide, I would like to address a question which was asked. So what if you have a product or service in which very few investors invest? Should you try to invest in, try to see if some other investors would convince other investors if you are worth in investing? Absolutely. I mean, that is always the case. But if it is a too big of a stretch, you will see an hesitation. And when you're looking into an investor, you're not necessarily looking at them as a checkbook, right? They're also your strategic partners. Because one, when nobody else is investing in you, they are. And it might seem to us that they invest and they make money, but they also earn their first dollar with very hard work. So if they are investing in you, they are not just your investors, they're also your strategic partners. They can open the doors for you. They can make your path easier. They can connect you with people you might not be able to connect as a first-time entrepreneur. So you really want an investor who's not just good with the financial support, but is also helping. And so when you try to convince an investors, those are some of the questions you want to ask them. How willing are they not just to give you a financial support, but support you strategically to advance your business in the right direction? I hope that answered your question. If not, we can follow up more analysis towards the end of the talk today. The three I always define the really, when you're looking into content, what should I put into the pitch and what should I remove? When you're looking into that, I always tell people to remember three things, 3 C's of a successful pitch. The first C is compelling idea. The appeal of your product, services should be direct, obvious, and immediate. That's a foremost thing. That's almost like core of what you are doing, compelling idea. Competent management. That's another thing. As I mentioned, visible technology, potential solution, and team, investment in you. So your management, the skills, the knowledge of your management, of your team, really is a very important component, because it's the people who are going to take the product through a viable process and promotion to the market. That's where the 4 P's comes in: product, process, promotion, and people. People in all this is a very important part, and it is an important part or important criteria for people to consider. And finally, cash flow. And I say this with little bit more provocatively here, but I do want to say that that doesn't mean that investors look into your personal finances, but they also want to make sure that their financial investment is not in the basic investment of your day-to-day life. They want every piece of their dollar to be invested in the company. They'll invest in you as a part of salary, but not necessarily. So you want to make sure that they might ask some hard questions if you're not making enough money to pay your electric bill. And so you want to make sure that you address the anxiety, the nervousness of the investors right up front. I have seen a lot of struggling entrepreneurs in their life, and I've seen them at the time when they are truly not being able to pay their electric bills. And but they were able to, even in that position, they were able to convince the investor, and they were able to put them at peace with the fact that even if they are not able to pay the electric bill of their home, they will make sure that their money goes into the technology and the lights of the company are still moving on. So that is what I mean when I talk about cash flow. And that is again, it comes down to you and how you express that to your investor. So really honing down to what is the purpose of pitch deck? Is the purpose of pitch deck to talk about you? Is it about technology? What it really is. Most often people say the purpose of pitch deck is to answer all possible questions, to close immediate investment, which is coming up next. You're talking to an investor, you're trying to make sure the investor is convinced. I believe that your pitch deck should open the minds of your investor. It should excite them. It should intrigue them. That's what you're looking at. Nobody expects you to, and most often when you're when you're presenting in front of an investor, you're spending maybe about 20 minutes. Nobody expects you to have the information which you have collected over years to be distilled down into 20 minutes. But they do expect you to intrigue them enough that they want to know more. It's the same way. I'm presenting here today with the hope that after an hour you spent with me today, from your Saturday, the time which you could have spent if you're in Bay Area, probably not in the fire time, but in a good day, you could have spent outside. You could have done a lot of things with this 1 hour, but you decided to be here. And I hope that after this hour, your minds are more open to this concept and you're more excited to know more. And that's exactly what investors are looking for from your pitch deck. So it really comes down to crafting your story, making your deck in such a way that it engages them. It starts filling up blanks for them. It gives enough information to grab their interest, but not too much to overwhelm them. And this is what I want to caution a lot of technologists and scientists on that. Give them enough to get excited, but not leave them wanting more. Your deck, sorry, I said but not, it means but leave them wanting more, not. You want them to want more of the information. Sorry about that, was a slip of tongue there. And the fourth thing which I want to emphasize is your deck should stand on its own. And why I say this, about 20 years back, there were few investors, there were few entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ecosystem was not necessarily seen at the same level it is seen now. Silicon Valley really opened the minds of people in last 30 years to showcase the potential of what can be done by entrepreneurship. Before that, before the turn of the century, innovations was limited to Fortune 500 companies. And I don't want to take away from Edison, Thomas Edison and Watson and Crick and many other scientists in the world who have done tremendous work in innovations. But innovation, translating a research into a company was a whole different aspect. And most often that aspect was taken by the bigger companies. They would license out the technology and they would develop the innovation. But in last 30 to 40 years, we have seen tremendous amount of entrepreneurial activity, and we have to give gratitude to Silicon Valley of the world to really open up minds for the people. And so at that time, there were fewer investors and there were fewer investment candidates. And so people had more time to meet one-on-one, to have a conversation on one-on-one. I've seen in recent times the trends, much before even COVID-19 situation, that investors had started asking for deck in advance. They would review the deck and then they would ask you to meet in person, mostly to know who you are and who is the person standing behind the technology and the claims which have been made in the pitch deck. So I would urge you that as you're developing a content, you want to make sure to look at that content and think, if I am not there in front of them, can they still look at the computer, read through these slides and understand who I am and understand who the technology is? And that is a very important aspect. It goes back to the question of content, what to leave and what to keep. Now, this does not mean that you put everything in the world you know about the topic onto your slide. You still want to keep it concise. You still are telling a story, make it visual. And I give a reference there for 10 to 13 slides, and I'll elaborate on it in a second more to make a compelling deck. So this truly is what the purpose of your pitch deck is. in terms of investors, and not just investors, your partners, when you're trying to explain this to people trying to understand your customers. So what is an effective pitch? One and the foremost question is, how do you communicate it effectively? First and foremost, you should open by saying your name, your title, what role do you have, and the name of the company. Because you have the most attention in the first few minutes of your presentation. In those few minutes, you would have either grasped the attention of your audience or you would have lost them already. So you want to make sure your first few minutes are catchy enough to keep them going with you little longer, little longer, little longer. Pitch your vision, because when they invest in you, they're not investing in your today. They're investing in the future of your company. They want to see that vision. They want to see where are you going? What is the path you're taking? And that is such an important thing. So you make sure that when you're expressing it to them, you don't just mention what you are doing today, but you also want to express what is the future of the company. Is it sustainable? As I already mentioned, that you want to grab their emotional attention. The research in tremendous amounts of, John Hopkins, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, all of them have conducted tremendous amount of research and understanding, why does somebody collaborate with someone? What is the one thing with which they make the decision? And decision making, even if it is related to money, even if you see on Shark Tank, people talking about, being very critical and thinking, but at the end, it's always about an emotional connection. It's always about an emotional attention and how do they relate to your story. You want to make sure that you tell them who you are. And I want to repeat, who you are. Not just your qualification, but also why. Why did you think of starting a company? Why are you invested in this company? What is relevant for each team member of the company? You want to introduce them to that, because that's what will make them confidence about not just the product, but the people who are going to take that product further. They always say that you want to make sure that you make your audience laugh at once. It doesn't have to be a comedy routine. And over years, I have seen some of the speakers who are just fabulous. They have a very nice way to drop one-liners, something which will grab when they see their audience going away from them, they grab it by saying something. I've never been a person who can make audience laugh. I try to, but it is not something which comes naturally to me. So if it doesn't come naturally to you, that's fine too. You'll find your own ways. You'll find your own ways to attract your audience, to make sure your audience continues to connect with you as long as you're speaking. If you are one person, if you have a presentation where they have given you 10 minutes, you want to make sure only one person is presenting. I have seen when teams come together, so 3 or 4 people come together to form a company. They all are keen to go in front of investors because they can show what they know. They can show the power. I would strongly urge you not to do that. If you have 10 minutes, you want to make sure that your CEO goes ahead and present that 10 minutes. And all of you can gather together when there is Q&A. It is very easy to focus on one person and listen to what they are. When there are too many people moving around, that becomes very difficult. That kind of format is, I think, applicable most in MBA classes, where you'll most often see people who are working in teams will have 4 or 5 people trying to present different pieces because they are doing it for the grades. They all want to show public speaking skills and they get graded on it. That's not the case in the real world. That's certainly not the case in front of an investor, because you want your CEO or any other person who can present the best to be up there. Reading the slide is always a big no-no. speaking too fast. English is not necessarily my first language. I translate. If you see me talking in my native language, I talk too fast. I've heard from a lot of, used to teach international marketing for about 10 years, and a lot of my students would tell me I'm speaking fast. So over the years, I have made sure to take a break in middle when I'm talking. I have tried to make sure that I'm talking slower so that I am able to emphasize on the concepts more. And of course, people do say that people who talk slower sound wiser. For me, I'm just translating from my native language to English. Sometimes that's when I sometimes skip a beat because I'm not able to match the lag. Having said that, you want to make sure that you have reviewed your slides, you're very well versed with your slides, you exactly know what you are speaking. Even if power goes off, you can continue to go with the presentation as if nothing has happened. If your time is cutting short and you have to skip the slides, be very comfortable. And I urge you to skip the slides at that time and go to your strategic ask. Why are you there? You are there for the very specific ask, and you want to make sure your investors are aware of it, and you don't conclude the chapter without the punchline. So that is a very important skill which you want to learn. I have seen over the years when people present and somebody says, you only have 5 seconds more or 10 seconds more, and people just start talking fast. You just lost your audience there. It's okay. Be very comfortable and you say, thank you. And with that, since my time is running out, I'm going to, if one thing you can take away from my presentation, here it is, and give them the strategic ask. Always have that pitch ready in your mind. I will have that pitch ready too. Before I start any presentation, I always ask the host, how much time do I have? I continuously make sure I'm monitoring my time. But even then, if I lose track of it, I try my best. I prepare different options before presenting to make sure if I have to go quick, I can do that. So with that, I'm going to jump into the pitch deck framework. First and foremost is business. Focus of the business, quick one-liner summary of your vision, your product. Keep it short and keep it memorable. And if possible, make it relatable. Very important part. Next piece is problem and need. That is the first thing. What is the problem? Why are you solving that problem? What pain you're going to eliminate? What need you're going to fulfill? Problem, pain, need, that must be recognized and acknowledged by your market. I cannot emphasize on that enough. So many people relate to construct a solution based on their own pain, own need. And that can certainly be your inspiration, don't get me wrong. But that inspiration, in order for it to turn into a commercialization product, has to be validated in the market, has to be acknowledged by the market to really understand that that is a problem and need of the masses. Because then you will really create a product or a service which curates to the need of the people. Solution. Once you know and you have identified your problem well, you can easily identify the solution which is already your idea. How would it solve? What is the value proposition it will have for your customer? With that, once you know the problem and your solution, okay, I'll slow down a little bit. Once you know the problem and the solution, the next part to it is market dimensions. Everything, if you have to see your business as a whole context, market dimension is the heart of your business. Your business will beat with the market. So you really want to know the overview of your market, whom are you really targeting? What is the addressable market? Is this solution even worth pursuing? Is this problem large enough that it is worth going with the problem? What are the major trends? If you are a farmer today, what are the major trends? There are tariff rates, there's so many other things. If you're looking into food products, you want to make sure that you're not just preparing some good food will get you customer. You might also have to find a way to get that food to the customer in COVID-19 situation. Really understanding those macro trends and those insights will allow you to target the market accurately and more appropriately. Traction. Show your timeline. This is something investors are really keen on knowing. What is the timeline? What is the milestone? What would be the growth metrics at an early stage? How can you showcase the partnerships, the presses, the acknowledgements you get? Showcase your success story. All this will allow you to track market your targeted customer. That is a very important part throughout your business. If you look at the movie, My Little Small Farm, it's a movie out of Netflix where a couple decided to move to a rural area to develop their farm. And in 7 years, they use regenerative agriculture practices, and they have completely turned around a complete barren land into something very beautiful, something which is sustainable, resilient, and an example. And they recently launched a movie on Netflix. And I kept thinking, how did they know? How did they know to videograph every move they made in the 7 years of the journey? And it just kept, I said, if I would be doing that, I would not necessarily be doing it, having a video camera follow me to make sure. How did they keep in mind that? And then when they launched their movie, it was a big hit because it showed a can-do attitude to many other people who were in the same line. But for that, you need to have an insight. You need to have a vision. So I always tell entrepreneurs, document your journey. Document how you're progressing, because as you progress, you just never know which milestone will become the highlight of your story in coming years. And those same, if you are in the habit of documentation, you can use those nuggets of knowledge to bring your customers along as well. Business model, really understanding the vision, your primary customer, how are they going to give money? How are you going to make money? Pricing model, all this is very important. And a lot of people say, can I read a book to understand the pricing model? And I always encourage them, you should definitely read a book. You should see how are the other people in the same sector doing this business. But I always ask them to also make correlations with other industries where this is possible. If you all know that about 7 years, 8 years before, Uber word did not exist in our dictionary. We came to know overnight about Uber rideshare app, and suddenly it was viral. Everybody was downloading the app, everybody was going with it. And before you know, it became the word in the dictionary. Now you go to different industries and they say, oh, we are the Uber of food industry. We are the Uber of music industry. We are the Uber of this industry, right? It has almost become an adjective to a pricing model, to a business model. And so the first person who must have taken up the concept of Uber, of sharing, whether it is Airbnb or many other platforms like those, they did not, if they would have continued to look into their own industry, they would not have been able to translate a different pricing model from a different industry into a new industry. So I always encourage people to look at the pricing model for your own industry, but at the same time, don't miss out on other industries which might draw a parallel and you might be able to find good industry. Really knowing how long your customer is with you is a very important part of understanding the success of your company. The next one is, I put two things in this together. One is intellectual property and another is competition. And the reason for that is intellectual property is almost like a negative right. And why I say this, when you buy a house, what are you getting? You're getting a right to live in it. You are getting a right to use the house as you see fit. You are, most importantly, you're getting a negative right to ask anyone to leave the house if you don't want them there. You can choose not to open the door for someone if you don't want them there. So along with all the positive rights the property rights gives you, they also give you a negative right where you can put others at notice and say you're not wanted, right? Intellectual property is a similar concept. It is a negative right. It allows you to create a monopoly for your product because you are putting others into notice. That happens with copyrights, that happens with trademarks. Once you are using it and you have taken the effort and time to register the intellectual property, you have got that negative right to ask others to not use the same work. And so they want to make sure, and this is a way legal offices try to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship in this world by creating that monopoly. But they want those innovation to be used by majority of the people, by the masses. And that is why they allow a very specific term of protection for those intellectual property. So you really want to, whichever technology or solution you're looking at, you really want to understand what kind of intellectual property you have, because investors like that point of having the monopoly, of having a position where they can really recuperate the money they have spent. Competition. It is important because your intellectual property will define your competition landscape. Competition will allow you to understand how are you different, what is your competitive advantage with other products, and why your customers should select you. It will also allow you to know what is your market positioning and why your approach will allow the company to grow and the customers. I also tell entrepreneurs that when you're looking at competitors, not only look at them as how they are different from you, you should also look at them as your teachers. And I say this because I think you can learn a lot from your competitors. How they are doing, what they are doing, not only how you should do differently, but also to build upon the concept, also to build upon things they have already tried and tested, have either not succeeded or succeeded very well. There is no reason to trying to reinvent the wheel. So look at intellectual property and competition as a unique advantage your business have to attract the investors. And if you have those information, you should add it in the pitch deck because that makes the investor very confident about your knowledge about the market, which I had expressed a few slides back. Market entry and growth. You really want to understand after you have identified a problem, you understand the solution, you know what your market overview is, you have figured out your intellectual property, you have figured out your traction of the market, you have done this all background work. You have all the groundwork ready. What is next? This research will mean nothing if it doesn't help you get to the market. So your next step is, how do you take this information and distill the information down to make it a solid market entry and growth strategy? And that's what it comes down to in terms of conducting your business. How are you doing differently? What is the most important and unique channels which you can use? These days, if you are launching a product, Pretty much everybody knows to launch the product in Facebook, on LinkedIn. And because of that, a lot of people are getting desensitized with advertisements on Facebook and other social media channels. Can you use other channels to promote your product? So all this information is extremely important to get that attention of the people you're looking at. Then financial projections and team. These are two main elements of your pitch deck, which makes your story walking. So you remember throughout the presentation, I was talking about if your business could be a body, the market would be the heart. Your business model, your knowledge about the problem and solution will be your brain. And financial projections and your team will be your legs. They are the ones which get your story going. Because even after you have identified problem, solution, market entry, everything, if you don't understand the financial positioning of your company, what is the forecasting? What is the projections I'm looking at? What is a potential net profit? Because at the end of the day, that is the information which will help you to do cost benefit analysis. So that critical assumptions of your customer conversions is extremely helpful. If you remember in the beginning of the slide, I had mentioned to keep your financial projections simple and straightforward. This is where it comes down to. For you to help out with a visual chart to make your financial projection easy to understand. And the next thing is the team. I've mentioned multiple times during the presentation today that people are at the core of everything. You can have the best product, amazing process, fantastic promotional strategy, but if you don't have people to carry it out, it will not be a success. So really understanding who is the team, expressing that to the investors, what are their titles, giving their background, their prior experience, their expertise, and what role they are going to play for the success of the company. This is the information you want to provide about your team to the investors to make them feel comfortable, to alleviate their anxiety in investing in you, because you want to convey to them you have the best people on the world to carry the commitment you are making. Finally, this is the final punchline in any pitch deck. You want to make sure you want to exactly tell them what you are looking for. What are you asking of them? What is the capital raising goals? What are the basic terms? Are you giving them equity? Are you taking it as a loan? How much stake? How long would it take you to raise the capital? And who, if it has already gotten investors, then who have currently invested in you? Also, where is the money you are asking them to give to the company is going to go? Is it going to go in the salaries, for marketing, for service development, R&D, for equipment? This is a very important information for them to exactly understand how much are you asking for, what are they getting in return, and what are you going to use the money for. This has to be extremely conscious, concise, clear in terms of what they would get out of it. No ambiguous language, no confusion. You have to be clear, almost crystal clear in this case. So with that, I know I went over a lot of information in a short time. So I want to have some outline configured here so that we have few minutes to take up questions. I have a couple of slides more now. So it really translates. This is where you remember in the beginning of the slides, I had said 10 to 13 slides in a pitch deck. It came down to 11 slides. It's capturing everything I talked to you so far. Elevator pitch, momentum, traction, your expertise, market opportunity, your solution, your service, your business model, your approach, your team and stakeholders, your financials, your competition, and your ask for funding and basic use of funds. For some industries, it might be helpful to have optional slides like exit strategy. If you have already some partnership agreements, having information about that. If you have a product which is already working, giving them a little demo is always very helpful for them to understand your technology, for them to know how does it touch, feels. If you have a prototype, please make sure to bring it for your investor to try. Existing sales, and most importantly, your special sauce. So you want to have these slides always in your back pocket. If the questions get asked, you have this information available at a very short notice. Some mistakes which I would strongly recommend you to avoid: too many slides, too much information. You definitely you will lose them before they even get started with you. Avoid using wordy slides. And this is a formula I try to use: 10, 20, 30, which basically means if you have 20 minutes to present, you should have no more than 10 slides and your font should be 30 point or greater. I myself have not, out of the 10, 20, 30 slides, I have not used the 31 because the font which you're looking at is currently at 25. But most often with a 1 hour presentation, I try to keep my slides close to 15 to 17 slides in a terms of concept so that I can follow that trend. Definitely understand the product details, giving them financial details. Remember, you want to intrigue them, excite them, not overwhelm them. Competitors, you want to have a very clear context of competitors. I've seen a lot of people belittling their competitors. Instead of that, take a high road. Explain why you are better, why your competitor will not be able to achieve the same success you are proposing in terms of support your claims for that. Assumptions, you want to be very careful with every assumption you make in finances, in market. They understand all the market information is speculative. Anything can happen anytime, and the market speculation can go out of the window. But even then, those assumptions are extremely helpful. And most importantly, entrepreneurs definitely need to have confidence, because having worked with more than hundreds, almost close to 1,500 entrepreneurs now in last 18 years, I know that they can take risk. They have the confidence, and that is the strength they have. To be able to pick a problem, to provide a solution when nobody else is thinking about it, requires a level of confidence. It also requires sometimes a level of arrogance, but try to keep it real. False confidence and arrogance is a put off, and it certainly is a put off to a lot of investors. So you want to be very cautious about that how are you coming out to an investor? These are just some do's and don'ts in terms of presentation. I don't think I need to go too much in detail. These are very basic things, bullet points, how to tell a story, limiting your slides, trying to show your people behind your idea. The only thing I would say here, always remember when you are preparing a slide that in your audience, there is always going to be verbalizer and visualizer. Some people resonates with the word more, they are always listening. And some people resonate with the visuals more. They always remember the images. And there are, of course, always few people who can do it both, but that is the majority of the population. So when you are preparing your slides, you want to cater to both of those audience. These are some investors' questions over the years I have collected in terms of common questions which they have for the company, which they ask often, or a capital raising questions, which also they ask often. So these are just kind of putting together some of the information for everybody here. And with that, I would like to conclude so that I have few minutes to answer your questions. Try to make your presentation 10 times better, not few times, but many more times so that you really stand out. Try to focus on your customer's first problem and not the last. Prepare yourself for rejections, because trust me, in the journey of entrepreneurship, you will see a lot of rejections, but always have the confidence, always have that little arrogance to ask why and learn from it and be the better person for it and a better professional for it. There are a lot of few great ideas, but few can execute them, and it is you who can execute it. Have that confidence in yourself and make sure to convey it. Time is the biggest enemy, so build quick, cheap, and iterate and pivot as and when you need for your presentation. Biggest competition, companies with equally great ideas, but the people who win the race are the tractions. And the best example in that is Uber and Lyft. Uber got so much traction that they put their Lyft behind. They kept in contact with their customers a lot. And if any one of you are interested, you should certainly study the case study of these two companies to really understand how they came up and how they address the market. It's a great entrepreneurial journey. And if you get a chance, you should also see their first slide deck. It was recently released on LinkedIn. Best opportunity, a big growing market, big problem, but a very simple solution. That's what goes ahead. You know, if you don't know, market does. So you cannot ask enough. Keep asking, ask often, and you will be amazed with how many people are ready to give you that information. With that, I would like to conclude the presentation for today. I would like to share the information in our SBDC program. We are doing a 6-part series for how to pitch an investor. We'll be actually working with you to develop your pitch, to help you develop and prepare for it. And we also have a pitch judging session on in December. And the Investor Pitch Work Series starts next Saturday, and you are welcome to join us. And with that, for any information you would like to know about me, or as well as the webinar series I just mentioned in my previous slide, or you have any question, feel free to call this number. This is the front desk number of our office. They will make sure to connect you with me, and our website is listed here. And it has been a pleasure for me to be here with you all and present, and I am ready now to take any questions.
Bandana, that was such a great presentation. Like, I learned a lot as an entrepreneur. I'm definitely gonna like rewatch this again. And then for anyone that's just joining that's not familiar with the SBDC, please feel free to connect with them in every region that you may be at in the country. You'll be able, there's SBDCs available to, you know, help. I'm actually a client of the SBDC, and they're helping me grow my business, Career Mingle. And so I meet with them pretty often to kind of go back and forth, and they, you know, provide insight on, you know, just how I can build my business, grow my business, and things like that. So let's see. Awesome. Thank you. Great takeaways. Someone asked, do we get a copy? We will provide this information. We need to, like, you know, chop it up, brand it a little bit, so it's not, we just put out there. But yes, we'll be providing this information to all the attendees, and we'll let you know when that will be made available. And then there was,
sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Neil asked, any advice on follow-up after the pitch, after you pitch?
So my advice would be to give it at least a week to 2 weeks and follow up with an email. Okay, so suppose you, let me take a step back and give you a process. Once you have given the pitch to an investor, if it was a live pitch, I would highly recommend you that within 24 hours, you send them a thank you note saying, it was a pleasure to be with you, and I really hope we can find a collaborative position here, a strategic fit. I want to reiterate what I'm looking for and why you are a great investor in my company or in my product or solution. You definitely want to do that within 24 hours because you're still in their mind. Once you have done that, whether or not they respond, there is no indication that if they don't respond, that means they didn't like you or something like that. Don't worry, they're very, very busy people. They fly often, they just don't have time sometimes. Give them a couple of weeks and then follow up again by letting them know that you wanted to see what is the process moving forward, what else can you provide to them to make sure that they have all the information as they are deliberating. I have seen, because I have worked with over close to 100 investor groups in the sectors of from IT to agriculture to medical. And for them, 1 month time is merely nothing.
Oh, wow.
And so it can be a month before you hear from them. So don't let it, for you, those investors are the only focus. For those investors, thousands of applications and hundreds of people who come in front of them are the focus, right? And so you are 1 in 100, and I don't mean to say that in any other way, but to make you empathetic towards their situation. So give them at least a month and then follow up again. So you want to do at least a couple of follow-ups before you do the phone call. And before you close it, you can do the phone call. I'm pretty sure when you do it deliberately in this frequency, most often they'll come back and they say, we reviewed, we had many other candidates, and we decided to invest in a different company. If you hear from them, be very cordial and tell them, thank you so much. I'm sorry to hear about the decision. However, I would really appreciate an opportunity to see what I could have done better, which would have made this decision to change. And any opportunity for a quick feedback would be greatly appreciated. They understand. Every investor I have known, they understand that entrepreneurs have a keen urge to learn. As long as they express that to them, they are willing to share how to improve. You know why? Because everybody likes to feel special. And by asking them that question, you're making them feel special because they understand that their opinion matters. So make sure to do that, because that also makes sure that you have now built a bridge. The door on the other side of the bridge was not open for you today because they didn't invest in you, but the bridge has been created. And you can walk on that bridge again later sometime when you're more ready, and the door will open again. And I have seen that happening many times.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see, I have time for one more question. It says, if you're running short on time, what sections of the pitch are better to skip than others?
So I would say market, as long as you have given a punchline to them, what really is market, what is the size, you can skip majority. You don't have to go on and on it. You definitely want to define your customer segment. These are the places where getting the visuals get really helpful. So make sure you describe these sections more in visuals so people can understand that better, and you can go more on terms of financial projections. It ultimately comes down to 2 or 3 things. Compelling idea, the 3 C's I mentioned. You want to make sure you're describing the problem and the solution very, very well. Mm-hmm. If they don't take away anything else from your presentation, they need to take away that there is a genuine problem and you're providing a genuine, outstanding solution. They need to know that. So you can't miss that. You definitely want to give them the confidence of the team. So some people put it in the beginning. Right in the beginning, they tell who is their team members. Some people who don't have very strong team yet, they're new entrepreneurs, they're still building their team, they tend to put it in the end. But if you have solid team in place with the experience and expertise, you want to highlight upfront. You want to tell them you got a people who can support this vision. And the third thing is the cash flow, the financial projection. So these are 3 things you definitely cannot skip. Anything else you can skip. And the final 4th thing is your strategic ask. You never want to leave the room without telling them why you were there for in the first place. And if they invest in you, what will it do to your company and where will it take your company?
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bandana. This was really great. So we're kind of running over time.
One more question.
Okay, I just see. Angel investors versus venture capitalists. The pitch sections are the same, or do they differ in any way?
They are mostly the same. The only difference is angel investors are come in at a much earlier stage, so they're taking much higher risk than venture capitalists are. And because they're taking much higher risk, they might dive into your technology feasibility a little bit more and might dive into your financial projections a little bit more. So if you're targeting angel investors, I would encourage and strongly recommend that you have all your assumptions of financial projections crystal clear in your mind, because they're going to ask you a lot of questions on those two things. Because angel investors believe in quick exit. They will invest, you kind of develop the technology, now you're a candidate for venture capitalist, so they get their exit, they leave, or they join as a venture capitalist. So they know it is short term, high risk, and so they, for them, more than people is the product feasibility and the financial projections, that it makes sense for them to have a quick return.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bandana. This is so great. Again, please feel free to connect with Bandana, or, please connect with the SBDC that's in your region. They've been a great support, like I mentioned before, to just me, helping me build Career Mingle. I'm a client of the SBDC, and they provide a lot of great insight on just how to grow your business and successful business strategies for entrepreneurs. I look forward to connecting again, Bandana. Again, thank you so much. And thank you for all the attendees that participated in our first Career Mingle conference. This is actually our last session, so I'm super excited. And this information will be provided at a later date, so just be on the lookout for that. And I look forward to seeing you at upcoming future Career Mingle events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure to be part of this conversation today. You all have a great weekend.
At you as well.